Activists in Nigeria are calling for a review of cost and expenditure across the various arms of government shortly after the disclosure by a Nigerian senator. It is not clear what happens next after the amount in question was made public.
A Nigerian senator representing constituents in the northwestern state of Kaduna, Shehu Sani, says Senate lawmakers earn about 750,000 naira each month, with a further monthly running allowance of 13.5 million naira, which equates to $37,500 on the black market rate of 360 naira per dollar, which is most commonly used.
I made it public so that in every possible way the chapter of secrecy can come to an end.
Although the Senate spokesman, Senator Aliyu Abdullahi, in response to Senator Sani, says the running costs of the offices of senators are contained in various line items and the budget of the National Assembly, which has been made public. Senator Abdullahi maintains that if people had looked critically at the budget of the National Assembly, which has since been made public, they would have seen that various line items like traveling, medicals, consultancy, and the rest were captured in the budget, and they were the funds divided for each senator's use. This controversy comes amidst heightening scrutiny of the President Muhammadu Buhari's record ahead of the February 2019 election.
It's outrageous. They're supposed not to earn up to such amount of money when there are people hardly survive. Even square means civil servants that did the real job are not being paid or to commensurate to the work they are doing. So things are supposed to be reviewed.
So I am of the view that the more there is less monetary reward for being in the National Assembly, then it will be less attractive for people who have nothing to contribute.
Africa's largest economy is only slowly emerging from recession. Inflation, despite slowing down for 13 months in a row, remained in double figures at 14.3% in February.
Well, joining us to discuss further is activist Japheth Omojua. Thank you for joining us on Network Africa from Abuja studios. Well, Japheth, going by the recent revelations, do you agree with other activists that the emoluments and wages of political office holders in Nigeria are injurious to governance and Nigeria's development?
I think that's the most obvious thing anyone could say. In the absolute sense, it doesn't make sense. When you compare it to the living standards of Nigerians, it doesn't make sense. When you compare it to the democracies that we have copied, in certain ways, it doesn't make sense. The British parliamentarians earn about £76,000 per year. That's how much. That's less than the Nigerian senator earns in 3 months. That's what they get in a year. An American senator earns about $176,000. That again, the reporter just said 37,500, 13.5 million. So that again is about what we earn, our senators earn in 3 months. Whichever way you look at it, whether you see it in its absolute sense, whether you see it in the reality of the poverty. Nigeria is the country that has the largest population of poor people in the entire world. Whether you see it in comparisons with democracies all over the world, it doesn't make sense. It's a form of injustice.
So your thoughts would be that we should change the model, talking about the National Assembly now. What model do you think would work in comparison? I mean, you've mentioned Britain. You've also mentioned the United States.
It's not as much about the model as it is about a system where we don't see the essence of public service other than an opportunity to amass wealth, to make money out of the system. Let's not forget that these senators, whilst earning this money legally, actually really and truly get to earn more money from other ways. I don't think we would have time to discuss those other ways, but we cannot pretend that they don't earn money from being contractors, whether through direct companies or indirect companies. So they will still find a way to do this. It's difficult to say Nigeria should practice a unicameral system because we're a very big country, a country of 180 million. We're also very diverse. We need representation. So we can maintain the system whilst making sure that people are rewarded according to the reality of the populace. You cannot have one of the poorest countries in the world, poor health system, maternal health, child care, education, whichever way you look at it, you cannot have such a system and have their lawmakers and their politicians, whether lawmakers or governors or ministers, earn the sort of money that we earn. It doesn't make sense.
So essentially,
it's not as much about the system as it is about us as a people.
Mr. Modua, what then are your thoughts with regards to how we can make governance more open, more transparent in Nigeria?
The first thing is civil society has to sustain its battles. Too many times, civil society gets to move on from one issue to the other without exactly fixing one. We need to ask ourselves, what are our priorities? Do we want to list like a 7-point agenda or a 10-point agenda that civil society will focus on and decide that on these particular issues, we will win before we even start to talk about other things? The truth of the matter is, this issue will be out of the front burner maximum in the next 4 weeks because some other things will come to the front burner. And as we get close to the election, it will totally disappear. Civil society has to take its job very, very responsibly in the sense that it has to not get carried away by the headlines and actually decide to focus on exactly what it needs to focus on. Transparency, accountability. Because when we do all of these things, we would not even have to have much work to do in terms of fighting corruption, because corruption results from people having the opportunity to steal in the first place. So the bottom line is for civil society to have a focus as to dealing with these issues. Let's focus on one before we start getting distracted by the other. We have too many distractions.
Okay, it's also interesting that you've mentioned that, so many distractions. We've also heard the call for this in the past with regards to the budget of the National Assembly, and then it's coming up again. Some would argue some civil societies are saying things, are doing things, but then not enough. How much can they do when this is a budget already for the National Assembly, already established by law? So it's not necessarily something that's illegal, it's what they earn.
Obviously, it's legal. That's what makes it even sad, right? That they earn this money legally. We are legally being screwed as a country by people that are supposed to be our leaders. But having said that, I'm not as interested in what we fix today or next year as in fixing these things for the future. Too many times we get carried away by wanting to have immediate victories. But look, the problems of Nigeria, we need marathons. The battle is a marathon. We're not going to fix everything immediately. I don't care for the next budget. I don't care for the budget of 2019. I care for building a system where these things are wrong in the next 5 years, 10 years, and down the line. So they shouldn't care too much about the fact that whether the last budget has been passed and the next one is about to be passed. They should care much more for the future. So if it's a battle that we will win in the next 3, 4, 5 years, fine. But we need to get on the field, we need to start now, and we need to understand that it's a marathon before it's a sprint. There will be certain things that need to be done immediately, but the complete winning of the war of justice with respect to how our national wealth is being spent and used and invested, it's going to be a marathon. Okay,
Mr. Modua, let's start with you. How much would you want someone on the floor of the National Assembly to earn? The minimum wage or a little bit higher?
I'm a very rational person, right? I'm not going to say that a senator should earn a minimum wage, because one of the avenues for corruption is also that you make it difficult for the person not to be corrupt. When you start paying a senator minimum wage, you are saying, help yourself. To start with, I would say, first thing is to have the amounts they earn at the moment, just reduce it by 50%. Why? We are not going to make it look like it's a war against them. When somebody has been earning about $40,000 every month, you don't just come and say, start earning $1,000. You're going to be very irrational. So we need to sort of face this thing. We could say over the next 2 years, this amount would reduce by half. And then after that, by 75%. And then we could decide in the next 5 years or 10 years, a Nigerian senator would be earning 25% of what the current ones are earning. Also putting inflation and other factors in place. So it's not essentially saying they should be earning poverty wage or living wage or national minimum wage. It's just for them to earn reasonable amount. An American senator earns about the same amount an American doctor or lawyer earns. So we need to just look at our reality. We need to look at what is happening around the world. Nigeria cannot exist in isolation.
Okay,
with respect to what our senators are earning at the moment, it's a form of isolation from reality.
Finally, just because we're running out of time, there's been a major call for the younger generation to take up leadership positions. Is the Nigerian youth ready, you think?
Look, it's a question of the people that are competent, that have the right character, the spirit and the will and the passion to run this country. Of course, we need young people in government, but then we have to be intentional about the sort of young people we want. Too many times, the system just seems to attract the wrongest people, whether they are young or old.
All right. Thank you so much, activist Japheth Amodra, for joining us there from Abuja. Well, that is the program tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Millicent Walker.